Lord. I think I taught this 2-3 months ago, chapter 11. As I recently studied refresher, I realized there was so much more to expand on Revelation 11. And this is regarding the two witnesses. I don't know how I should sign the label for two witnesses. Persons, or the two come from heaven. It's 3.5 years. Should I sign this witness? Should I sign that as a witness? I'm not sure, so we'll get there. Now, beginning in Revelation chapter 11, verse 1. And there was given to me a reed like unto a rod. And this was for a measuring stick that appeared to be like a rod, staff. And the angel stood, saying, Rise and measure the temple of God, and the altar, and them that worship therein. The angel told John to measure a specific location in the temple. We'll talk about that in a moment. Verse 2. But the court is the outside. I'll show you a picture. Okay, in this area here, that's called the temple. And the court is this vicinity in this location here where I'm pointing around. Or also the very outside wall portion. I'm not sure and guarantee what specific, but it is on the outside. It's destroyed. Someone asked if it's still there, and no, the temple is destroyed. 96 AD, I believe. 96 AD. We'll talk about it in a moment. Continuing in the scripture, it says, But the court which is without the temple, leave out, really emphasizing that it was the inside that would be measured for the temple. And measure it not. And that's the outside, the court. Don't measure it. For it is given unto the Gentiles, and the holy city shall they tread underfoot. I'm trying to figure out what those means. 42 months. Okay, so when I taught this in the past, 3 months ago, I didn't fully understand it, but I have a better understanding at this point. The two witnesses, I'll cover that more thoroughly as scriptures go on. Currently it's talking about the temple, but here in verse 2 it's talking about 42 months. The angel told John to measure the temple, not the outside. And the point of this all was, let me get that picture. Okay. This is for the Muslims. That's the place they worship. Goes way back in history, like 600 AD or something. I can't remember the specific date. It was many years. The temple of God was destroyed in 96 AD. then the Muslims built this. And they called it the Dome of the Rock. Okay, you see this red octagon or hexagon? That's called the Dome of the Rock. This is where the second temple was built. And if you look here, there's some red outline and there's darkened outlines. They specifically are showing what is inside and labeled. That's not there any longer. That temple is gone. It was burned. Let's go back. I want to show you something. Okay, it says leave out and measure it not. Specifically talking about the court. This is what the future temple is possibly going to look like. They don't have a court. It says without. Only the temple. Reason I told you it was destroyed. The Gentiles. This is for the Gentiles. This is for the Jews. Okay. Now, Muslims, the Dome of the Rock, Scripture is talking about the holy city shall tread underfoot 40 and 2 months. Does this make sense to you? The Dome of the Rock was kept. And momentarily it went black. Sorry. Somebody called me. Stop it. Okay. There was some confusion regarding the Dome of the Rock. So the Dome of the Rock is here. They captured and took control over the temple. It no longer belonged to the Jews. It now belonged to the Gentiles or the Muslims. And so there is an agreement the court is not there any longer. It won't be built. So the court won't be built. There's 42 months. As further we go, I'll explain a little bit more detail. Interpreter's kind of not following well. My apologies. He's going to cover this a little more detailed further in Scripture. Now here in the commentary question it says, is there a reason to believe that this is prophesying about a literal temple of the end times immediately before the second coming of Jesus Christ? The answer would be yes. And the reason is because John was told to not measure the outer court. Don't measure that. And the reason it would be trodden down of the Gentiles. Some people thought that this could refer to the temple that stood there before Titus destroyed it in 70 AD. It was destroyed in 70 AD. Okay? teach about Titus later. It would be on a Sunday. Right now we're talking about Paul. When I finish covering Paul and his travel to Rome, and the ending there, what happens there, Titus becomes kind of the commander. He takes over that area. There would be a map regarding that, how that responsibility was taken over. And Titus is the one who's ordered the Jews, or ordered the soldiers to destroy the temple. It's Solomon was first, and that was destroyed way back. The second one, that was before the Romans, they ordered it to be destroyed in 70 AD. Now, however, the book of Revelation was written in 96 AD. "26 years after that temple had been destroyed." This certainly must refer to an end-time temple. Okay. It says some people have thought this could refer to the temple that stood before Titus destroyed it. And some believe the second temple was destroyed, and that was Revelation. No, it's not, because John had not wrote that yet. At the time it was destroyed. So 26 years later is when John wrote this Revelation. So this in Revelation is talking about the end time temple. Are we clear with this? All right. Okay, so now going further, the Gentiles will tread the holy city underfoot for 42 months. And so we've already seen 42 months is a very special period of time. It is the time described as the Great Tribulation, when the little horn, which is another name for Antichrist. Antichrist will make war against the saints for a time, times, and half a time. So time is 1 year, times is 2 years, half a time is half of a year, or 6 months. Totaling those three equals 3.5 years. Revelation 13 says the beast will have power given to him. Okay, now, the beast will have power given to him. Again, another name for the beast is the Antichrist. So the power given to him continue 42 months, and to make war with the saints. It's the exact same period and occurs immediately before the second coming of Jesus Christ to establish his kingdom. I know it's hard for understanding. I want to show you a scripture here. This is Revelation chapter 13 and verse 5. I will teach that down the road. It says, "And there was given unto him a mouth, speaking great things, and blasphemies." And this is talking about the Antichrist. "And power was given unto him to continue 42 months. Again, Revelation 13 and 5. So the Antichrist, recently I talked about the temple. It's going to be destroyed. Let me move forward. I'm kind of going in circles here. And I had an understanding, but now as I'm explaining this and you're looking at me confused, I feel like I'm confusing you more. I'm going to move forward and we'll track back. Another scripture talks about the building of a temple in the end time. It It's found in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 3 and 4. And this is Paul writing. It says, "Let no man deceive you. By any means." It means for anything. Don't let them deceive you by anything. By ways, anyhow they can convince you and deceive you. Don't allow even 0.00001%. Don't allow it. Okay? Continuing scripture. "For that day shall not come except," or the word means until, "there come a falling away first." And falling away is described as apostasy, which really is an abandonment of a religious belief. I'm going to keep going as I explain. It says first. "And that man of sin," another name for the Antichrist, "be revealed, the son of perdition." And again, that's the Antichrist, a name for the Antichrist. Here in the scripture, "Let no man deceive you. For that day shall not come except," or until, "there be a falling away." You know, the scripture talking about being against. This is wait until. And that day of his appearing, that's the Antichrist there, that man of sin. Is the Antichrist against us yet? Once he comes against us, we'll know when the Antichrist is here. Because it says first, and it hasn't happened yet. It says first. There's Christians out there. There's going to be a time where they will come against any Christian. They will come up to you and say, "Take the mark of the beast." Okay, then you'll know. Just be prepared. I'm saying this scripture says first. And you'll know when the Antichrist is here. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 4. "Who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God." He's going to say, "Look at me. I'm the one you worship. I'm God. Call me God." The Antichrist is going to want to be exalted above God because he's going to say he is God. Scripture is saying, "Or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God." See this? See what the word says? Sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. Now again, to clarify, this is talking about the Antichrist. He's going to appear and make himself exalted above God. He's going to call himself a God. So in order for him to sit in the temple of God, there has to be a rebuilding of the temple. The temple must be built before he is appearing. It's the temple have been built yet? No. So the Antichrist is not here yet. He's not made his appearing. The temple of God must be built. Talking about Jerusalem, the temple of God will be built in the holy city. The holy city, there's a scripture talking about the holy city. Someone's questioning what the temple of God is. We're all churches. No, this is clarification. The temple this is talking about the temple being built in the holy city. Scripture 4, who opposeth and exalteth himself. The Antichrist is going to say, I'm God. Worship me. I am your God, and I sitteth in the temple. This is my throne. Worship me. That's what he's going to say. He's showing himself that he is God. That's going to happen in the temple. Okay, this is the second place where the scripture refers to a temple during the time of Antichrist. In which the Antichrist could physically sit. A temple that can be measured. So the point of this commentary is there's going to be a temple built in which the Antichrist will be able to sit on the throne. He is going to make himself sit on the throne, make himself appear as God, people to worship, and there's going to be people that's going to worship him, and the Antichrist is going to be against God, and he's claiming the temple, and he's claiming all the worship for himself. The question was asked, I didn't see it, apology. Okay, so the third scripture identifying the building of a temple in the end time is found in Matthew chapter 24, verses 15 and 16. This is where Jesus is speaking. He's speaking to his disciples. So we have the disciples here, and they're following along with Jesus. And one of the disciples says, oh, look at the temple, it's so beautiful. And, it was a good point, it was God's temple. However, Jesus made the comment, and let's look at Matthew 24, verse 15. When you therefore shall see, okay, therefore means the end, result, or the result. Therefore shall see the abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel, the prophet. Again, Daniel wrote prophecy in regards to the Antichrist. Stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand. Okay, so from here to here, the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel. Stand in the holy place. So what does this mean? And who is it? Abomination of desolation. That's the Antichrist. He's going to show himself. He's going to say, I'm God. I'm here. This is my holy place. He's going to sit on the throne, make himself known, puffed up to be above God. Jesus knew the future. It's very sad. He said the temple's going to be destroyed. It's going to happen in the holy place. This is such a sad thing to think about. It really touched my heart. But before, when I read that, I never really understood it. But as I've been studying this, it made sense, and it just pierced my heart. It broke my heart. This is prophecy. It's going to happen. Again, this is spoken of by Daniel, that Jesus was speaking to his disciples. The Antichrist will show before Jesus Christ appearing, the second coming. It'll be 3.5 years, and then say that last part again. Say that last part again. 3.5. So the Antichrist will appear, will be raptured, and then 3.5 years later we will rapture. Okay, so after the rapture of the church, 3.5 years, the Antichrist will reign. Be a total of 7 years. We will suffer and go through that persecution for 3.5 years while the Antichrist has taken reign. And why would that be? There's going to be a control of the world government. It's going to force everyone to take the mark of the beast. If you take the mark of the beast, you can't join the rapture. It says, if anyone takes that mark, you won't be welcome. If you don't take the mark, you'll be welcome to heaven. But if you take that mark, you're rejecting him. So why would this be? Why people are going to need to take that mark? Because it's going to be food and shelter and water and living. You don't take that mark, you're not allowed to have anything for your living. Could you survive without 3.5 years of food? I'm not gonna do anything about it. I'm gonna let God take care of me. Okay, hold this right here. Hold this up. The way I read this, I feel like, wow, I've got to share something here. This is very deep, and I was learning when I was studying. I just want to share with you, Brother Urban Baxter, he wrote the book for Revelation commentary that I've been using. And I've been using that, and implementing that into my slides and studying that, and I began to understand it. Everything was coming clear as I was going along. And then along the lines, it says specifically, we must pray more. Because the Father's prayer, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So that's sentences. Thy will be done on earth and as it is in heaven. That part's going to be done. It will happen. We must, can't emphasize it enough, we must pray more. We have got to pray more. As I was reading that, it's going to be such a worst time we could ever experience in the future that we would ever go through. The flood, it was nothing because they drowned. But this, we're going to have persecution against us. The mark is going to, you can't take the mark, you can't eat. It's going to, endure for 3.5 years. They're going to say, you've got to take it. So we have got to pray. That prayer is the key. God's going to be there with you. If you don't pray, very little, minute, something comes along and happens, God's not going to be there for you. You'll be like, praying, oh God. He's going to be farther away, but the more you pray, the closer he's going to be. He's going to protect us. The more prayer, the better it's going to be for you. Stay close to God. Have that connection with him. But a little bit of prayer, you're going to draw farther away from him. He's not going to be there for you when you need him if you don't pray. It's going to be a horrible time. We've got to pray. When I read that, it just pierced my heart. I've got to make more time. Because you never know when it's going to happen. We've got to pray now. We've got to be ready for that future time. So we're close enough already. We don't have to catch up and pray. Remember there was a 400-year silence? for before Jesus Christ came. That 400 years, there was no prophecies, there was silence, and then all of a sudden Jesus Christ came. That period in history, I was studying that, it was very interesting. The Israel, you had Moses. He released the Israelites back to the promised land. Many years. And they gathered there and they were close to God and they were in prayer. However, later they began to neglect things of God. Their prayer became less and less because the other country came in and took over. Oh, we've got to pray. Increase your prayer. So there would be someone like Gideon come in and defeat the army. There'd be Deborah. She prayed. There's so many different ones that pray, and they said, God help us defend the enemy, defeat the enemy. But then there was a time of silence. And there was some deceit. Remember David? There was Goliath, the giant. And he appeared. What happened? They prayed and prayed and prayed, for protection. God sent us a man, okay? And so David came. He was a prayer warrior. And as I was studying the scripture, thinking about it, talking about the temple, and then, they're like, oh, I need to pray now. You need to pray a long time so you arrive close when you really need it. Build it now. Build that prayer life now. Have that strong connection with God. So by the time the real temple, the third temple, is rebuilt, you're already close to God. God's not going to be there to protect them. So when I read what Irvin Baxter wrote, I was like, it touched my heart. I thought, oh my, I've got to pray. I've got to specifically, prayer is so important. I've got to make that time. The book he's talking about is Revelation Commentary. So the End Time Ministries, Brother Irvin Baxter. They are working on a new DVD right now. However, the old version I have does not have closed caption. But the new one's supposed to have closed captioning subtitles. All right. Continuing in scripture here, Matthew 24, verse 16. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. Them is regarding Israel. Let them flee into Israel, to the mountains. Therefore shall see the abomination of desolation. When you therefore shall see the abomination of desolation, they need to flee to the mountains. So getting back when talking about the 144,000, that's those that have the seal. So I have a question for you. Do you think the disciples understood what Jesus was speaking of? I was thinking about that. I was wondering about that, and I'm thinking, I wonder if they truly understood. Okay, so the reason I was, I kept talking is I want to share with you a thought of this timeline. The disciples was walking with Jesus. And they said, oh, look at the temple, how beautiful, and yada, yada. That's what Scripture said. Oh, the temple of God is beautiful. It's almost like heaven. And Jesus was silent. He knew this temple would be destroyed. In 70 AD. So he was like 30 AD. He didn't know. The disciples didn't know. But Jesus knew. continuing here, it says, Jesus stunned them by saying, "It's all coming down." And the disciples responded, they said, "Lord, tell us." In other words, they wanted to hear what he had to say about it. And so when Jesus took them to the Temple Mount, or the Mount of Olives, okay, they walked up to the Mount of Olives and they sat down. Okay, is coming in verse 15, is talking about the abomination. Stand in the holy place. So Jesus was standing there and the disciples was looking around and they were thinking, oh boy, the temple's going to be destroyed? They were wondering about that, questioning that. It really touches my heart. I showed you this already. Okay, this dark outline is, this is going east, this is going west, and today, and this isn't the right picture I was thinking of. There is one that's called the Wailing Wall, or the Western Wall. Over here it's labeled Golden Gate. This is where Jesus entered into the gate, the palm. You know, they held palms to Jesus. That gate is now closed. There's a picture I have to kind of, give you a better look, see what it looks like. But this original temple is gone. Here's the Dome of the Rock. That is there today. There's a red outline here, drawing with his finger, and that's the vicinity. See, it's the platform, Dome of the Rock. Okay. All right. Kind of already covered, passed that up. Just commentary, really. The scripture refers to the time immediately before the second coming of Jesus Christ. In Matthew chapter 24, verse 21, it says to flee if you live in Judea. Matthew 24, verse 21. For then shall be great tribulation. Oh, tribulation is going to be terrible. Such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time. The Great Tribulation is going to be horrendous. Going back in history, back to Adam and Eve, until that time of the Great Tribulation, nothing has ever happened in such turmoil and such tragedy. The tribulation, the Great Tribulation will be. It's going to be the worst ever experienced. And it says, or nor ever shall be. I believe it. Because I know they're going to be suffering. The flood was, if you think about it, the flood was easy for them. I mean, yes, they drowned. But their suffering, they didn't go on and on and on and on and suffer, continue suffering. When you're close to God, He's going to protect you. The scripture says, ask and He will do it. Recently I did talk about, read Revelation chapter 13, verse 5. Again, Revelation chapter 12 and verse 6. Revelation 13:5, it says, and there was given unto him, talking about the Antichrist, a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, things that are against God. And power was given unto him. So the power was given to the Antichrist to continue 42 months. Now, looking at Revelation chapter 12, verse 6. and the woman, and this is a symbolic word for Israel. And the woman fled into the wilderness, mountains, where she hath a place prepared of God, that they should feed her there 1,260 days, and that's 1,260 days. That's 3.5 years. That's equivalent to 40 and 2 months. And if we notice something here, the word to continue. So the Antichrist will already be there before this time. So 3.5 years, the Great Tribulation, Israel's going to flee to the mountains for 3.5 years. The Antichrist is still going to be there reigning 42 months, 3.5 years. Israel's going to flee. You know, the scripture says, flee, don't stay. Don't stay in Judea. Run to the mountain, there are 144,000 will be there. Okay, moving along. Jesus continues in Matthew 24, verse 29. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. Okay, up here in the scripture, immediately after the tribulation. It's going to be horrible. They're going to flee to the mountains. The light is going to be darkened. The sun's going to be darkened. The moon's not going to show its light. It's 3.5 years turmoil. 3.5 years begin. And then after that, a short time. I have scripture about before Jesus Christ comes. Let me find it. Here we are. Perfect. Matthew 24, verse 30. This is immediately. Then it goes to scripture. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven from the east. Remember? He gave that warning. Don't believe people that Jesus was there and the Messiah's there. And, Jesus gave that warning. Don't believe them. Only what Jesus said, he's going to come in the appearing from the east. And then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man, meaning Jesus, coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. So 3.5 years. There's a time period there. 3.5 and 3.5. Right there. Right in that middle time. The sun turns dark. Moon doesn't shine. Then Jesus Christ appearing. In that time frame. So we will go through the first part, 3.5 years. Jesus is coming. I'm going to be thrilled. I'm going to pray. I'm going to be so excited. Continuing in verse 31. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect. So the trumpet is going to be the rapture. again, and they shall gather together his elect. The angels are going to gather his elect together from the four winds, north, south, east, west, everywhere. We're going to gather them together. It's going to be the angels. It says from one end of heaven to the other. Everywhere. Not going to be one space missed. The angels will gather every single one of the elect. Jesus is going to send those angels down. They're going to choose the elect ones. It's going to be quick, not very slow. It's going to be quick. Here we are, another visual. Angels coming for the elect. They're ready. Praise God. Okay, so there was 3 scriptures specifically prophesy a temple that will exist in the end time. Currently there is no temple, but there are people who dedicated their lives to building such a temple. They are already working on building the 3rd temple. And guess what? I was online, I was finding scriptures and pictures. My wife showed me something. Temple University. Temple University. You Google it, Temple University. They are already working on building the temple, and they are training the priests, the Jewish priests. They are preparing for the process of the 3rd temple, what they have to do step by step. The priests are already being trained. The only thing they don't have yet is the Ark of the Covenant. They have everything else ready. Temple University, if you look online, you can find it. I was shocked. Where? It's in Jerusalem. It's there. They're already training. They've been doing it for a few years. They're preparing. And they were talking about the red calf, the red heifer has been born, and we're very close. I was reading, it said, yeah, heifer, the red heifer. It's in scripture, is it Numbers? I think chapter 11 something. But they said those who inspected, they're going to wait a few months and check again, because that birth, it can change a little bit later, but they believe it's ready. They believe, and I'm not sure what it means about the heifer, but August something. Recently born in August, there was a picture of it. So it's important. It's important for the temple. Temple University. They're preparing for the temple, the rebuilt temple. Someone asked if it was good or bad. They want to prepare and be ready for the 3rd temple. They can't build it and then have nothing ready, but they have everything prepared and ready. There was a process, the clothes, garments, what they wore, everything. The high priest, what they were required to wear. Except they don't have the Ark of the Covenant. The holiest of holies. They haven't built that yet. When they build it, they're going to be prepared. They're ready for the temple. One thing that Brother Irvin said in his teaching on that commentary DVD, it said when it happens, the people of like the animal rights, they're going to be angry and because of killing innocent animals. So that was one thing he pointed out. So that time's gonna be horrible. Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of rebellion take place in that future time. All right. Makes me kind of, I want to be ready. I'm telling myself I want to be ready. I've got to be ready. Okay. Gotta look at my time. I'm just a little bit. I'm gonna put it on hold. Really, I do need to stop, but. Facebook people, okay.